early on. The basics of Terran, pretty much, I need to be spending my money, need to be not answering Skype on my phone, and to start out in Legacy of the Void, I'm going to be rallying my first SCV to make a depot at the ramp. You have enough money in order to be able to make that depot instantaneously. Just making sure it's tight up against the ramp. You should only need 2 depots and a barracks in order to be able to wall off. Anything past that, and you've screwed up the wall. Alright, just try it a few times. It's not too hard, but you screw up the wall, you're going to lose games that really you shouldn't be losing. If he's random, he could be any race, obviously. He could come across with Zerglings. He could be proxy gating. He could be going for anything aggressive early on, and the wall helps you defend against that. I'm just going to be going for a Reaper first. You don't need to do some super intense micro on the Reaper. The Reaper is just to get you an idea of, does he have units that could attack me early on, or does he not have a threat? Like, you don't need to have too much knowledge in order to realize, okay, he has like 10 units and I have 1, maybe I should get some defenses. Or he has no units, he has all his buildings in his base, or he has an expansion, another base down on the low ground. Maybe I don't need to be aggressive, or I don't need to be defensive, I can just build up my economy. It's kind of your choice at that point. But right now, I'm just going to be scouting as I finish the barracks. This is just to get an idea, 1, of what race he is. I'm playing against Random, and he didn't tell me his race. And I'm going to be building the Reaper. We'll complete the wall right after the barracks finishes as well. Start my orbital command the second that the barracks finishes. There are no exceptions to this rule. You want to get that orbital command, get the mules out as quickly as possible. There are very small situations in which you might not want that, but you shouldn't be concerned about that at all. Alright. First SCV is going in. I'm going to check and see if he has an expansion. Then we're going to see what race he is. And I'm just going to go for an expansion on the high ground myself. Just getting in the habit. Okay, we see he's Zerg, and he has an expansion on the way, which means he is not going to be super aggressive early on. He doesn't have a spawning pool yet. He already has a spawning pool, 2 gases, and a lair on the way. Now, this is a little bit different from what you'll usually see. This means he's teching up very quickly. He actually has an expansion. He's being greedy, and he's teching up at the same time. What that means is he can't have an army. You can only pick 2 out of 3 things. You can't do 3 out of 3 at one time. So this means I can just kind of come in. I don't need to worry about the Reaper too much. I just want to get my tech and my infrastructure up behind, because we know he's going to be going for the lair. I can get a kill or 2 on this, but I'm just going to retreat with the Reaper to a safe place. Well, what I'm going to focus on is just doing something in the middle of the road. He's doing an extreme right now. He's going straight for the lair. You could see the hatchery turn into the lair right there. And he has 2 gas gathers, which means he wants to tech up very quickly. So, I'm just going to build up my production. If I just build a medium-sized army while expanding, even if he goes for really heavy lair tech, like lair tech could be Mutalisks, or it could be Hydralisks, maybe eventually Lurkers or something like that. It doesn't matter. If I just focus on spending my money, like I'm getting another orbital, I'm getting add-ons as soon as these barracks are finishing. It's good to get in the habit of doing that. It's not always better to have add-ons on barracks, but eventually you'll want them. They're more efficient than making another barracks entirely. I'm actually going to go for tanks here. And right around now, I'm starting to build up my army. I want to get a bead on exactly what I want to be building. I want to go into his base and see what he's building off of that lair. On top of that, I'm going to have another SCV just to scout. But we see he has a lot of Zerglings, but those Zerglings do not have Zergling speed. The lair is complete, and we see a Spire on the way. That means Mutalisks. Alright, I got to start my engineering bay. I'm actually going to start a Cyclone in a moment, which is pretty good defense. And I can go take my expansion, because the only real threat right now, is the Mutalisks. So as long as I defend myself against the Mutalisks, then I will eventually have a better economy. You saw he didn't have a queen there, which means he doesn't have very much production. I'm going to keep this Reaper in position to see if he's ever moving out on the ground. And I'm adding these supply depots. I could add them as a wall at the front, but if his only threat is Mutalisks, I'm just keeping them in a safe place. You just want to make sure you have about 1 supply depot in production up until you get to like 70, 80 supply, and then you're adding more supply depots on. But I'm getting turrets. 1 turret in the mineral line and 1 turret at the edge to kind of zone out the Mutalisks. I have a Cyclone here. I can add my Starport on. That's something you want pretty quickly. The Cyclone can take down a Muta usually on its own. It's good to have in your army as well. Because if he's on 2 bases, he doesn't have that much economy. He's not going to be pumping out 15, 20 Mutalisks. He's going to be pumping out 5 or 6. which is significantly less. When in high numbers, Cyclones aren't very good against Mutalisks, but right now I'm just focused on spending my money. Even I'm getting supply blocked here. If you get supply blocked at this timing, it's okay to drop down a supply depot from your orbital commands here, which I have hotkeyed together, so I can focus on just producing at the same time. Otherwise, I'm dropping mules. I'm going to get a... Well, I'm just going to start here. We'll get the reactor. I don't have that many units to get medevacs, but right now I'm just focused on building up this army. I'm going to get +1 out of my engineering bay. That's something by like 6 or 7 minutes you should be looking to get an upgrade if you're going for mech. You want to be looking to get an armory and start +1 for mech weapons, usually. Every once in a while you want armor, but usually weapons upgrades are better. I'm just adding a couple additional turrets on. I want to see if he has a third base, and I'm keeping up that supply depot production. But right now, I'm just doing that middle of the road, build up your army, have a decent chunk of production. On 2 bases, you can support 5 barracks, a factory, and a reactored starport. I only have 4 barracks right now. But I can still continue producing, and I might even want to take another base soon. But I'm going to suicide this Reaper to get an idea. Looks like he's still adding on Mutalisks. I'm going to scan the main base just to confirm if he has any other tech. But no, it looks like he's committing to these Mutalisks right now. So I'm just adding some Cyclones on. I'm getting my medevacs out. That's actually a pretty high priority, is getting the medevacs. And honestly, it's probably better to just add a couple more in the way of barracks here so I can spend my money. That's all I'm really focused on right now. I've got all my... The way I do my production hotkeys, I put all my production on the same hotkey. This is a little bit different. Like, some players will put 5, 6, 7. I have a guide on this as well. We actually see the Mutas coming in. That means I can stim, and I can just go for the Mutalisks. I already have turrets pretty much everywhere they're needed, and I'm going to be able to take out a decent chunk of the Mutas. I don't need to worry too much about this. My focus is just on holding the line against the Mutalisks, and eventually, once I have a few medevacs, once I have combat shields, stuff like that, then I can walk across the map, and he shouldn't have enough army supply in order to contest me. If he's focused so early on getting Mutalisks, he's not going to have upgrades. He doesn't have a third base. I can actually scan that in a moment, and I will. Which means if we're both on 2 bases, and I've already countered his tech, he doesn't have enough to deal with just a strong army. We see, we're going to look at both third bases, and we actually see right now he's going to take a third base. When he's expanding, he's invested these minerals in taking the expansion, but he hasn't received any benefit. He doesn't have the production from it. He doesn't have any income from it. That means right now he's at his weakest point. I'm going to always send 1 Marine out ahead. Here's what I'm doing. I have all my Marines selected. If you hit Shift, and then, well, I'm right-clicking. I hit Shift, I click off 1 Marine, and you'll see that Marine eventually goes and walks across the map. I'm just clicking it out of my control group, and then I hotkey everything else. It's good to get out of the habit of using the Select All Army hotkey, because if you use that, you're not going to be able to shift-click out. But at the same time as I'm moving out to attack, I'm making sure, okay, I have upgrades, I got a couple more depots, I've got my production, and okay, now I'm ready to move out. I'm going to see where the army is, and we see the Mutalisks are over here, but I have enough turrets, and I have the production back at home in order to make sure that I'm not going to take damage to the Mutas. I've got Marines right in front. I see he has no creep spread, so this army is safe out on the map. I'm not going to get rolled over by banelings. I'm going to scan. See, he has very little here. I could go for the third base. I think I'm going to go straight for the third base. Just make sure I get that third. He actually delayed my third base. But once again, making sure I have everything in production right before I attack. And then we're going to stim and can just take down this base. It's good to have your army split up a little bit, just in case of banelings. And I can see right now he's not coming in. Alright, there's a Nidus network in my base, which you can't kill, but I can bring the reinforcements. That's why I kept reinforcements at home in case he counterattacked. But we can go deal with this 3-roach harass and attack at the same time, because some of his forces are committed on the other side of the map. And now we can take down the Nidus network, and should be able to deal with the army in front. Nothing fancy there, just middle of the road. I saw he was going for a lot of tech early on in the lair, so that means all I have to do is figure out what lair tech he was going for. I saw the Mutas, so I just built to defend against the Mutas, and eventually once he took a third base, I'm moving out. Not before. If I move out before he takes a third base, then he could have equal army supply to me and deal with my army. But if I can take a third base back at home and attack his at the same time with a few medevacs and decent tech to deal with his early lair, then I should have a superior army, which will win in pretty much any fight. So that is just basic TVZ there, determining what tech he has early on, and figuring out what timing my army is going to be most effective against his army. And usually once you have 3 or 4 medevacs and he's taking a third base is the best time to do that against the Mutas. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, do all the other YouTube stuff that people do, and check out the other guides. Alright. That was the first one. Oh, we got promoted, boys. That was the first one. Remember, these guides are designed for bronze, silver, and gold, not for... I'm going to have more advanced guides for platinum, diamond, and masters. But these are bronze, silver, gold guys. We're playing bronze, silver, gold. We're staying... I had 77 APM that game. Nothing crazy. I should have gone over the score screen. That's my bad.